Esther, not born in royalty, not raised in comfort, not trapped in certainty. I was an orphan, raised in exile, living in a land that was not mine, learning early that survival sometimes requires silence. I was a foreigner before I was a queen, an immigrant before I wore a crown, a girl taught to blend in, to lower her voice, to hide her identity. Mordecai raised me with love, but also with caution, he said. Do not reveal who you are. Not because I was ashamed, but because the world was dangerous. So I learned to live with identity fear, the kind that smiles on the outside while trembling on the inside. Then the call came, not a call of comfort, but a call to risk. I stepped into murky waters. I auditioned for a throne, not knowing it would one day demand my life. Which foreigner auditions for a White House level throne? Who does that? Only those who let courage become their second name. So I wore perfume, I wore elegance, but underneath the silk was a girl asking, where is God in this? Deep inside, I wanted clarity. Clarity as to why my life was unfolding this way. And when I became queen, I thought the battle was over. But ladies and gentlemen, elevation does not cancel responsibility, and favor does not excuse silence. Because one day, fear knocked louder than ever before. A decree was written, lives were at stake, my people were marked for death, and it was urgent. And suddenly, my silence was no longer safe. That's when the clarity I had been seeking finally came. Not clarity about comfort, clarity about calling. I realized the truth. If I stayed silent, people would die. If I stayed afraid, injustice would win. And a voice rose inside of me. Enough! Enough is enough! Conviction rose in me like fire in dry bones, and I spoke the words that still echo through generations. If I perish, I perish. Not because I wanted to die, but because I was afraid. I refused to be mastered by the fear of death. I fasted, I prayed, I walked toward danger with faith trembling in my hands, and then in my shaking, God stepped in. I was handed the golden scepter. But hear me, I did not learn courage alone. I stand on the shoulders of those who went before me. I remember the four lepers, rejected, serving, unwanted, who asked one question: why sit here until we die? They took weak, staggering steps toward the enemy's camp, and God magnified their steps. Their courage was born out of desperation, and nations were fed. I remember David, a boy with a sling and a stone, who refused to be silent before giants that mocked the living God. He had clarity about who God was, conviction about who he was not, and courage to step forward when trained soldiers froze. I remember Nehemiah, who left a high-ranking, comfortable job as a cupbearer to the king, not because life was bad, but because his heart was broken. With clarity, he saw the wall. With conviction, he faced opposition. With courage, he ignored threats from Sanballat and Tobiah. And Jerusalem was fortified again. I remember Jael, who stood with piercing clarity that the oppression of Israel had to come to an end. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't call for backup. She didn't ask for a stronger man. She acted and finished a battle the army could not end. I remember Stephen standing before a lynch mob. With courage, he preached truth to power. He refused to soften his message just to save his skin. And even as stones flew, he looked up and saw heaven open, choosing faithfulness over survival. I remember that blind man shouted down by the crowd, "Keep quiet," but he cried louder, "But Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." He refused to be silenced, and quality of faith restored He sighed. I remember Zacchaeus, short in stature and even shorter in reputation, yet too curious to stay hidden. He climbed anyway, and salvation entered his house. I remember Paul, once a persecutor who encountered grace and never stayed the same. And I realized something. God has always used people willing to risk reputation, comfort, and safety for obedience. Now hear me, ladies and gentlemen, young and old, and even children here. How many of you are hiding? Hiding because of the fear of Barafu, because enforcement is knocking and silence is the only thing that feels safe now. How many are trapped in jobs that are killing their souls because losing income feels scarier than losing your peace? How many marriages are hanging by the trend and fear keeps you quiet? How many parents are overwhelmed, children misbehaving, systems failing, and hearts breaking silently? How many are waiting for children, for healing, for jobs, for breakthrough, and delay has turned into despair? How many are sick in body, broken in mind, and tired in spirit? How many of you are afraid to speak against corruption, against injustice, and against failing systems because the cost feels too high? Let me tell you something. Fear is expensive. Silence costs lives. Delay can destroy destiny. So hear me today. Clarity is knowing why you are placed where you are. Conviction is refusing to negotiate the truth. And courage is acting even when your voice shakes. Fear will always whisper, wait, stay quiet. Someone else will do it. But destiny responds only to obedience. You are not born for silence. You are not raised for fear. You are not preserved for comfort. You are here for such a time as this.
Amen.
And church, the greatest clarity is knowing who Jesus is. The deepest conviction is believing that he is Lord.
Amen.
And the most worthwhile courage is choosing him. Openly, publicly, and without shame. Women, if you believe it, shout with me. Clarity.
Clarity.
Conviction.
Conviction.
Courage.
Courage.
And now, church, do you believe this? If you believe, shout conviction.
Conviction.
Clarity.
Clarity.
Courage.
Courage.
So you're going to stand, speak, and act, and if you must perish, perish, obey.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to try within time. Our song, we need one song, even if we're not